Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Efrosini Sumilida Sims, and I am the subject lead for PSHE 11 to 16 at Jigsaw. Today, we have the first webinar in a trio of webinars, which are aimed at preparing teachers, specifically PSHE leads, to be confident, informed, and prepared in teaching some of the more tricky, sensitive, and controversial topics that arise in RSHE. Today, we're looking at the era of AI mode, and we have the wonderful Bianca Farthing with us, a PhD researcher, ex-teacher, and all-round expert in the field of AI. Thank you very much, Bianca. You may start.
Okay, well, hello everyone. So I very much work in this, I suppose in the sector of AI, specifically when it comes to responsible AI use and youth opportunity, and also just focusing on how we do use it to ensure that our pupils are future ready and undaunted. So today I'm going to be looking at the era of AI mode. So what the 2026 RSHE guidance means for schools. So that means I'm covering AI chatbots, deepfakes, online scams, and digital safety. So what we're going to cover is very briefly, because I appreciate that a lot of people would have had a lot of what AI actually is, but just so we're all on the same grounding, how children are using it and why it matters now, what the guidance says in terms of what we need to teach about AI, a bit about deepfakes, chatbots, online scams, and the risks that our young people are facing, AI bias and misinformation, and how teaching through a spiral curriculum is actually very helpful when it comes to embedding this knowledge when it comes to young people, and also some practical strategies such as policies, staff training, and whole school approaches. So just very quickly, just as a definition, so we're all starting off at the same point. When I say AI, I'm referring specifically here to large language models. So when we think about AI, it can encompass so many different things, such as algorithms. But when I'm referring to it in this context, we're talking about things such as ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini. And when we're thinking about that, it is large language models that use a vast set of data, and it's been trained on billions of examples of text and makes predictions. So, for example, it predicts what the next word or the next letter may be. It's not a knowledge dispenser. It is very much a prediction engine. And that's what we need to consider and ensure that our young people know as well. So AI in 2026. Now, this has emerged quite rapidly, really, because if we think about it only a couple of years ago, we wouldn't have seen most of these things. So when we think about what's going on, I've used the term AI era simply because it's everywhere. When you go onto AI search, when you go into Google, for example, if you look in the corner of your search bar, it says AI mode. If you go onto any sort of search engine, it will provide an AI summary first before it goes on to anything else. So it's already permeated our day-to-day tasks and our workflows. And actually, young people, when they're using their phones to Google something, a lot of them now aren't actually going in any further than the AI summary. So it's already there in their vision. So we've got AI search. We've also got robots and hardware. So there are things such as companion robots that you can pop in your pocket that are marketed at children, very much like the era of Tamagotchi that we had when I was a child, but this is vastly more intelligent than my Tamagotchi. But it's all about having this technology that children are able to have as companions. We have them as vehicles, as smart rings, so things that are attached to us or in our vicinity that we can interact with on a day-to-day basis. And this has now gone even further in terms of wearable AI. So, for example, Meta glasses. And there have now been cases of children in exam rooms wearing AI enhanced glasses. And so it's a new challenge now when it comes to what is allowed and what is not, and what is appropriate. And then also we have creative AI, so image generation, music, vibe coding. Now, for anyone that doesn't know vibe coding, it's essentially being able to code without any actual coding knowledge. So you explain what you'd like to create in an app, and you just use your normal vernacular, and it will help you create and vibe code an app for you. And then we also have AI agents. So all of this is embedded in our young people's day-to-day lives as well as our own. So how children are using AI. So this has been taken from the UK Safe Internet Centre. And they took a survey of children aged between 8 and 17. And essentially the statistics they showed were about 97% of young people are now using AI. So the things that they're using it in school are help with homeworks, around 54%, asking questions, summarizing, improving, which one would argue it's pretty good use cases. However, that is a huge amount of usage that's going on. And it's gone much further than we thought it would in the last couple of years. Now, where it becomes a bit more concerning, especially in terms of safeguarding as RSHE, is outside of school. So if we think about entertainment and fun or getting advice quickly, but if you look down to the bottom of the outside of school section, discussing private concerns, 14% of children are discussing their private concerns with AI, and 41% are using AI as an emotional support, which again is very concerning because what that means is that they're using it, and when it's for emotional support, for things that they're not discussing with their peers or with their family or with essentially with their trusted adults. So children are already using it, and that's quite a large number, and it's only going to get more and more when people have, firstly, more experience with it, but also with the new capabilities that are coming out. And also it's becoming, when I say more and more human, the vocabulary that it's using has morphed into something that actually resembles very much human-like communication. As well as this, 50% of UK children have said that they've seen peers using AI to do their homework for them, again, problematic. And 49%, this is quite sad, I thought, is they believe that AI is making their age group less creative. So children are aware that actually there are problems here. So it's not just a case of we've got a generation that think AI is flawless. That's very far away from the truth. But there is across the sector what I would deem to be irresponsible AI usage, and we need to prepare our pupils in terms of how they can use it responsibly with all of the ways that it could potentially get a bit problematic. So I don't want to be doom and gloom because there are benefits of AI, and I very much believe in technology, and I think it's a fantastic thing when used properly. So, for example, as a thought partner. So I often use it as a thought partner to challenge myself, to say, what have I missed out? What am I overlooking? What am I underemphasizing? Just something to shine a light in the same way that you would with a colleague, for example, or a research partner. That doesn't mean it is the end point to your research, but actually, as a jumping point, it can be very helpful. Augmentation, so it can enhance your skills. I have recently learned vibe coding. It's been a great deal of fun, something that I never thought I would do. I never thought I'd code anything, but it's a lot of fun and it's really interactive. And for young people, they can actually create something that previously would have been incredibly inaccessible to them. So it can be a really exciting opportunity, especially for those who are more mechanically minded. And so there are more opportunities, and that's the same with agents and gems. It's also efficiency. Now, where gets a bit tricky is we need to separate efficiency and education, because I argue education shouldn't be efficient, education should be deep. But we need to register when we want efficiency, AI can do that and help us with it. But we need to decide when efficiency is warranted and when depth is warranted. And that's something that needs to be taught to young people as well. Limitations. So cognitive atrophy, when we think about the over-reliance and weakening critical thinking and memory, this is one of the most concerning ones that I think. And that's simply because if you don't give the young people the opportunities and the scaffolds to learn, when it comes to AI use, they wouldn't have built that up, their skills to evaluate whether it is responsible use or irresponsible use, and actually how helpful that is. We've entered it as, AI has come along now that I am an adult and I have years of my schooling in academia. So I'm able to pull on all of that resource to evaluate what is in front of me. Our young people haven't been given that opportunity yet. So we need to give them all the tools available because they're grappling with AI much earlier than we have in terms of their development. And that's something we need to bear in mind, especially when we use terms such as digital natives. I find that term slightly problematic because that essentially alludes to the fact that they are comfortable with this technology. And just because they're comfortable using it doesn't mean that they understand the limitations and the risks of using it. That's something we still need to get across to them. And the same with superficial learning as well. If they're getting answers without understanding the process, then again, that's incredibly problematic. We also have problems such as data and consent. And so, for example, making sure that young people do not input personal identifiable information, and also staff, making sure we're not putting in information about ourselves, our schools, our pupils. Just like when we're careful about, for example, what we're putting in emails that might come up when you're in a classroom. It's in the same way. You don't want anything being passed through unless you have a very secure setting and infrastructure in your school where they've said that that's okay. But other than that, we need to be very careful about what data we're sharing, because AI is using that data to train its models. And if we are using it, also making sure we turn off the training function to ensure that it doesn't go much further. Ethics and society. So who's responsible when AI gets it wrong? AI has not been created for, I mean, one would argue for the good of the globe. It has been created as a product. And, we can often use the phrase that if you're not paying for a product, you are the product. And that's something we also need to get across to our young people. By using this, they need to be aware of what the costs are to it, and who's responsible for it. It hasn't been made by people who are creating it specifically for education or specifically for knowledge. It has also been created as a marketable product. And so because of that, our young people need to be informed about what that means to them as well. Echo chambers. Now, when we think about AI, the more you use it, the more it adapts to your vocabulary, your ideas. It wants to keep you on the platform as long as possible. So the way that it wants to keep you there, it wants to engage with you more and more. And the idea is the longer you stay on the platform, the more tokens you use, the more money that then makes. So it adapts to the way that you speak. But what that means is it also then starts to entrench and reinforce these ideas. So if you have a certain political ideology, for example, it would encourage that more often than not, because it's adapting, because it wants to please you and keep you on. And that's what it's programmed to do. It wants to keep you there. So that's something that we need to ensure that our young people know how to think critically, how to challenge. And the same with homogenization. It's the risk of narrowing diverse perspectives and creative voices. So, for example, if you're having AI correct your work, or if you're having it show you an idea about something or an image of something, it will give you something that is the stereotype more often than not. And because of that, it does start to close our view. So we need to ensure we're giving pupils the opportunity not only to evaluate the fact that it's doing that, but giving them the opportunity to see outside of it. Now, one of the things that we came across in there is bias. So AI systems, they are trained on human-generated data. And so what it does is it will then amplify what it's been given. And our society, if we look at our data, if we look at everything that's on the internet, it is completely filled with our own prejudices and biases, because that's how we've developed as humans. Now, because AI uses that and codes it and amplifies it, there are often gender biases and racial biases that are also in there. So, for example, if you were to prompt, and this is something that you can do across, it's not specific to one, so ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whichever your preferred choice of AI is, it often will produce a stereotyped result. So, for example, a doctor would often be a white male, a nurse would often be a white female. And the same with racial bias, for example. If you want it to visualize something such as a deprived area or an aggressive person, then it will often associate that with someone of a different race. So again, that's really problematic, because that's not something you would necessarily notice with your day-to-day interactions, because you would be interacting with it and being shown these images. But actually, in time, that's getting entrenched in your consciousness about these stereotypes. And if you don't know these biases are there and built in, then how are we going to evaluate it? Especially with young people who might just believe that this is what the world is. So there was some really interesting research actually that was carried out by Victoria Headland, which many of you may have come across. She's absolutely fantastic, and she does a lot of work on bias. So she tested, and this was a really interesting experiment. She tested how AI explains simple science. So, for example, how a light bulb worked when it's told to a boy in comparison to a girl. So her findings found that AI didn't give everyone the same technical facts, and it actually based its languages on gender stereotypes. So, for example, the responses it gave on how a light bulb works to girls, the AI used gentle or domestic metaphors, and it used words such as glitter or magic or fairy lights or necklaces. And then when it came to boys, again, we're using the same topic, the same question. It used more active and technical metaphors, so things such as race cars on a track and building robots or engines. So we can see that over time, even though it's exactly the same prompts, it's giving a different experience to young boys than it is to young girls. And that's something we need to be aware of as well, because it is using our societal bias and it's amplifying this to our young people, even in something as simple as how does a light bulb work? So it's something we just need to be very aware of. I'm going to move on to deepfakes and young people. So there are a lot of tools now. They're referred to as nudify tools, and they can change an ordinary photo, so whether it be something on WhatsApp or social media, into a fabricated explicit image. And children, they're not just victims here, actually, they're perpetrators as well. So there have been cases where children have been taking other children's images and turning them into nudified images. So it's not an adult child. It's actually just there's a lot of people doing it. So when we think about this one, and this I think is also very concerning, 60% of UK young people worry about someone using AI to make inappropriate images of them. So that's not even something that's happened. This is something that 60% of young people, according to this survey, are just worried about. That's a huge number of children that are worried about something potentially happening to them in terms of anxiety. When we think about our next one, 1.2 million children across 11 countries have disclosed having their images turned into explicit deepfakes in 1 year. So this statistic was taken in 2026. So that was basically the year before. 12% of UK teens aged 13 to 17 have seen peers using AI to create sexual images or videos of others. Again, 12% is an absolutely massive figure when we consider the fact that these tools have only been used in the past 2 years or so. And then 11% of UK secondary teachers report deepfake imagery has been used maliciously against students or staff. So we need to bear in mind here, this isn't just students, it isn't just staff or students or adults, it's across everyone. So anyone can use anyone's images. And when we think about the fact that we've got our school websites, for example, that often have staff faces on there, pupil faces on their marketing materials, this can be taken by young people and it can be, or by anyone essentially, and manipulated into a certain way. So it's something we need to be aware of. So when it comes to deepfakes, it's not just about nudifiers. They can also be something that it can be something that's indecent, but it can also be something that's just persuasive in a certain way. It could be something that's just incredibly silly, for example, like making someone into a caricature, but it is something that is a fake image that is created to make something seem real when it's not. So the guidance, the 2026 guidance, it requires schools to teach about deepfakes. So pupils need to know how common they are, how they can be used to cause harm, and how to spot them. And that is getting more and more difficult because with every month, with every update, it is getting much more difficult. But there are still some telltale signs. And also, it's about teaching pupils not just to look at what's in front of them, but the context around why they're seeing it. And that's also very important. So in terms of what's happening in schools, so pupils, there are pupils and there have been cases of them creating deepfake images of peers and staff. AI generated CSAM, so that's a child sexual abuse imagery, is on the rise globally. Face swap apps, which have been used for bullying, harassment, deepfake voice and social engineering, and also the difficulty distinguishing real from synthetic media. So there's a lot of harm that can be done here with deepfakes. And our responsibilities is making sure that young people know that creating or sharing these images under 18s is a criminal offence, and even requesting an intimate image of someone under 18 is also an offence. They need to know that because they need to understand the gravity of what's happening here. because it's very easy to get caught up in the novelty of look at what I can create and not think about the ethical implications of what they're doing. Sharing intimate images of adults without consent, again, illegal. Schools have a duty to report to the police, and people should know that they won't be in trouble for reporting as well. And also making sure that they're aware about the remove tool that's available when it comes to Childline. So it's all about having open communication and the opportunity for young people to discuss and have that opportunity to say, I saw this, or I think this is being created. Chatbots. So this is another one where it comes to the guidance and it states that they can pose risks by creating fake intimacy or offering harmful advice, and schools need to teach people to think critically about new types of technology. So some of the risks when we're thinking about chatbots are fake intimacy. So I mentioned earlier about the fact that they start to adapt to you and they start using vocabulary which is similar to your own, but also there is, when it comes to chatbots, there are certain ones on certain websites. Now, this goes away from just ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and the like, but to things such as Character AI or Replica, for example, where they're actually made as chatbot companions. And so they are programmed to respond in a way that might simulate intimacy, which, of course, is then a simulation. It is fake, but it's making sure that people understand that and preferably do not engage with that until they have the understanding of what fake intimacy might have. Harmful advice. So there have been a number of cases where it's led to essentially it's called AI psychosis. And AI psychosis is all about how it essentially feeds you and amplifies your thoughts and your feelings. But in some individuals, that has ended up in a state of psychosis where they've needed professional help because it's essentially stimulated this spiral of poor mental health and these triggers. And again, it's something that we need to be aware of because it's something that's happening more and more. Privacy and data. So we mentioned this earlier, but when it comes to what you're putting in, it learns, it remembers, it trains on the data. And so it's just making sure that our pupils are aware that that is a risk, and also staff as well, that we know that there is a risk when it comes to privacy and data. There was an instance not that long ago, for example, where ChatGPT had a share function for their chats. And it was found out slightly later after everyone had been sharing their chats to colleagues, to friends, that they all started turning up on the internet, for example. So you could actually search people's chat, and that was something that wasn't anticipated. So when it goes into AI, unless there's safe infrastructure behind it, normally a school system, but you should clarify with the school, it is very concerning, and you shouldn't be putting in anything that could be seen as essentially sensitive data. And then academic integrity as well. So young people that are using chatbots, it's about what they're using them for. So when we go back to the idea of in-school usage, asking questions in theory could be very innocent, but when it comes to the point of rewrite my essay for me, or not even rewrite, write my essay for me, or do my homework for me, again, it takes away from that academic experience, but also it's becoming so realistic now that pupils can enter in and say, create my answer in the style of a 9-year-old child. And actually, it's getting quite good at that as well. So it's quite getting far more difficult to spot. So online scams and frauds. So again, the guidance requires people to understand that criminals operate online scams, online scams, using fake websites and emails, including risks of sextortion, and gaming scams, fraud, and financial harms. So when we think about things such as phishing and fake sites, so there are convincing websites and emails that are designed to steal login details. And when you're using deepfakes, for example, deepfake voices, again, this adds to that. It makes it even more believable. So it's another layer. We've seen fake websites, we've seen phishing emails for a very long time now, but this is something that makes it even more manipulative. The same with sextortion, for example. So blackmail using real or now fabricated intimate images. So when we've got the idea of deepfakes, again, that can be used for this as well. Gaming and in-app fraud, so fake item trades, currency scams, and manipulative monetization targeting younger users. So again, it's a danger that was already there prior to AI, but it is something that gets amplified when it comes to the era that we're now in. And then social engineering. So when you have things such as AI-powered voice cloning and impersonation used to exploit trust and relationships, So you can make someone's voice sound very different to what it should be. You can make someone come across in a very different way, and it's basically equipping young people to discern what a responsible relationship is online and also offline as well in terms of what you're presented with. So misinformation, disinformation. So this is another one which feeds across them. So the guidance requires schools to teach about the prevalence of misinformation, disinformation, including conspiracy theories and how to be discerning consumer of information. So we have things such as AI generated content, and that might be convincing fake articles, images, videos. So there's a lot of cases now where young people will go on to social media and doom scroll, for example, where we don't necessarily engage with very much, but they scroll through. But a huge number of those are starting to be AI generated images and videos. But because they're scrolling at such a rate, they're not sitting there and evaluating, well, is this AI? Is this real? Is this AI? It's just something that's being fed in a loop to them. And so again, there's a huge amount of AI generated content. So it's ensuring they have those tools to think about it. And if they see something, they go, well, that doesn't seem quite right. Where should I go to ensure that it's not? And the same with our algorithmic amplification. So social media algorithms, they prioritize engagement over accuracy. So if children are engaging in a certain topic or certain content, then that will keep getting fed to them. And again, with AI, you can create and curate these experiences for them. So again, it's something that they need to be able to discern. And conspiracy theories. So AI tools, they can generate and spread conspiracy content faster than ever because now you can create a video of someone supposedly saying something, or an audio of someone supposedly saying something, or an image of two people interacting in a certain way. So you can create conspiracy theories using AI generated content. And the same with search and AI answers. Now we need to consider the fact that even Google, it does present information as authoritative. And the same with our chatbots. Chatbots don't often give the answer of, I'm not sure, or you might want to find that out somewhere else. It gives a very authoritative tone. And because of that, it's very persuasive. And for young people to see something very persuasive, again, alludes to the fact that persuasive equals correct. And that's, again, something that we want to avoid. So when we think about what the guidance actually says, so it goes down into our 3 sections here. So online safety, and it covers AI chatbots and fake intimacy, deep fakes, indecent imagery, online scams, fake accounts and AI content, and data collection and targeted ads. Well-being, so we're thinking about misinformation, disinformation, conspiracy theories, unhealthy comparisons and curated profiles. Now, this was the case before, just using social media, but actually people can use AI even further to curate how they look or what their lifestyle is like as well. So it's actually putting even more pressure on our young people. Gambling and gaming monetization, the impact of online content and well-being, and over-reliance on online relationships. You now have online relationships and AI companions at scale. So it does become more concerning. And also being safe, trustworthiness of sources and people, consent and boundaries online, and technology used for coercive control, how to report and get support, how to recognize bullying, harassment, and rights relating to personal data. Now, a lot of this is about literacy and just essentially pointing pupils in the right direction, giving them the guidance, giving them the knowledge, and then pointing them where they can go. So when it says to what they must teach, in the curriculum. So AI chatbots are an example of rapidly developing AI. So we've covered this. It's also talking about how it's all collected, how data is generated, shared, used, and that websites share personal data for commercial purposes, including targeted advertising. Now, all of this just summarizes what we've said earlier, but the key message here is that pupils need to understand that this is a product and there are limitations to said product and risks, and we need to give them the information to be able to discern what that is. Now, this will be trickier dependent on their age range. So that's why building depth and having a spiral curriculum is beneficial anyway, because when it comes to what they might be exposed to at 11, that's going to be vastly different to what they're exposed to at 16. So in Key Stage 3, having a focus on how to be authentic online and offline and the influences that AI may have, how to engage and respond responsibly, recognizing when it may be fake, manipulated, AI generated, and understanding what a deep fake is. So essentially, this is all about evaluating the positive and negative impacts of AI on your health and reputation. Now, this is very much about understanding and responding. But when it comes to key stage 4, you can add in that depth. So understanding about thinking critically and identifying threats and understanding legislation and what your rights are. So when it comes to digital systems and algorithms, being able to actually question it and understand how it specifically works and knowing the relevant responsibilities. So it's all about building that knowledge. AI understanding shouldn't start at the age that they can begin to use it, because actually a lot of it will say 13 plus, but I can guarantee most pupils are using it far below the age that whatever AI platform they're using suggests. And so because of that, we want to ensure that that education is starting as early as possible. So some examples of teaching strategies that might be helpful. So using real world examples, so something that pupils can engage with. So I've taken some of the resources from the scheme of work that will be from September 2026 for Jigsaw. And so we have an example here. So when we think about deepfakes and about using technology, and this is about not just deepfakes or AI is terrifying, but actually there are real world examples where it's helpful and useful, and there are real world examples where it is risky and problematic. So for instance, with this one, when we have David Beckham's health campaign, and they used deepfake voices to essentially give people who ordinarily didn't have a voice, they were able to portray that. And that's something that was seen and was actually celebrated publicly, but it was the use of technology that gave people a voice who ordinarily wouldn't. However, we also have things such as AI influencers now. Again, this is a real world example of an AI influencer who had over 250,000 Instagram followers. And it's her posts were all about, I say her, but it's an AI, but it was all about travel and workouts and selfies, and they were all completely AI generated, but that received over 250,000 Instagram followers. And that's what's happening more and more, is young people are following, and sometimes they have no idea that they are actually following people who aren't real people, but are just curations. Some more strategies as well is just giving pupils the knowledge. So when it comes to looking for authenticity, for example, so here we're looking at the person or source. So who's sharing it? Do they ever show real moments? Is their online persona consistent with what you would expect for a real person? Or when it comes to the message, is what they're sharing realistic? Is it honest? Is it balanced? Are facts or emotions used fairly? Does it match them? Why might have it been posted, and how does it make you feel? And if it seems too perfect, what effect might that have on others' confidence? So this isn't just about, well, it has an image generation where something has 6 fingers or the lights flickering. It's actually about looking at, well, why is this being posted? What impact might this have? Do we think it's realistic? Let's pull on our knowledge base. So it's not just about teaching about the tools and the creations. It's about setting children up so they can understand what to look for contextually, not just in terms of tools, especially because the technology is moving so quickly, but actually it's getting more and more difficult to identify just technically what is AI generated and what is not. And so we have to use essentially our context far more than we ordinarily would have done. So when it comes to responding to AI incidents, so we need to ensure that schools have a clear and confident response. So making sure that they're following child protection procedures, making sure that pupils don't delete evidence and it's reported, watching for signs as well. You know your pupils, so ensuring that you recognize whether there's withdrawal from peers, for example, emotional responses, spending excessive times that they might have mentioned, and approaching them with empathy and having that open conversation. So when it comes to whole school approach, this is not just about individual staff. It's not just about PSHE. It's not about computer science. This is something that permeates the entire school infrastructure. So from leadership and policy to parents and carer engagement, to reporting and responses, to curriculum, to staff training. And it's all about having an approach that covers the entire school and entire framework, and that everyone to an extent is responsible for the AI school approach. So when we think about a policy checklist, so for those of you who are looking at policies, and even those of you who are just reading them, does your acceptable policy explicitly mention AI chatbots and generative AI? Is deepfake creation sharing addressed in your behavior policy? Because this is something to consider when it comes to both pupils and staff. Do pupils know how to report? So we've got it referenced in PSHE materials, but actually wider in the school. Do pupils know how to report? Do staff know how to report? And are they trained in recognizing AI generated content? Does your RSHE curriculum include AI specific content at every key stage? Because they're experiencing it at every key stage, so the education should be there. Do you have a process for responding to AI related safeguarding incidents? And are parents and carers informed about AI risks? Because it's not just in school. When pupils go home, they're also still using it. So having that bridge of communication is incredibly important. And is your filtering and monitoring updated for AI tools? So are we ensuring that we are using the appropriate measures? So when we think about our key takeaways then, AI is already part of your pupils' lives. So according to that survey, 97% of UK 8 to 17-year-olds are using it. So the curriculum needs to reflect this now. The 2026 RSHE guidance, it explicitly addresses the AI chatbots, the deepfakes. They aren't optional extras. It's something that needs to be included and in a way that's accessible. AI bias, just as we referenced there, is real, it is measurable, and it does shape what children see, learn, and believe in ways that reinforce stereotypes. And especially when children are interacting, according to this, from as young as 8, sometimes even younger, it means that they're seeing these stereotypes much younger than they have the developmental framework to be able to evaluate them. Approaching it using a spiral curriculum, so ensuring that we're building understanding progressively, revisiting themes, increasing depth and complexity, so ensuring that it's age appropriate, but that they're grappling with these as they essentially should come across them in life or may come across them in life. And this is a whole school responsibility. So policy, staff training, curriculum, and parent engagement, it all needs to align in terms of our approach. So our final question, this is very much a rhetorical question. In the algorithmic age, how do we prepare our children? So making sure we teach critical thinking, we embrace the tools, but when I say embrace, I mean responsibly embrace, and ensuring that we stay human. So ensuring that empathy, ethics, and original thought, it can't be automated, and we shouldn't allow pupils to believe that it can be. So making sure that we are allowing them to make responsible decisions by incorporating the guidance in a way that is accessible to young people. We have a clear framework of what we need to do. It's very much how do we do that, and how can we expose young people to this new technology in a way that actually helps them. Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much for that, Bianca. So at this point, we do have some spare time. Has anyone got any questions that they would like to raise? You can either put them in the chat or put your name in the chat and I can take you off mute for you to ask them directly. Just give people a couple of seconds to do that. While you're thinking of those questions or entering any questions into the chat, I'd like to remind everyone that next Wednesday, on June 10th, we have the second webinar series, which will be hosted by a colleague of mine, Bethan, who will be exploring positive masculinity and challenging misogyny, creating a whole school culture of respect and equality. That will be at 4 o'clock next week. So hopefully we'll see some of you there. I'll just give you another 30 seconds perhaps to put something into the chat if you do have a chat message, or to put your name in the chat and I can unmute you. If you have no further questions, please feel free to go and enjoy your evening.
We have one question. Oh, we have two questions. Did you say earlier that Jigsaw is preparing new lessons for this topic?
We have, yes, absolutely. So from 2026, we have embedded into the programme, again, in that spiral curriculum at various ages, we have put more of a lens on AI usage, and Bianca herself has designed some of these lessons as well, haven't you, Bianca?
Yeah, so it's very much a case of ensuring that it's not so much changing things as such, but it's very much shining an AI lens and ensuring that everything that's in the guidance is where it is age appropriate in the Jigsaw curriculum.
That is correct.
And are there any places where David can access real life cases of deep faking and prosecution?
So any actual case studies that are taking place? Bianca, are you aware of any globally or within the UK?
Yeah, there's one, for example, there's a deepfake voice one in Pittsville in the US. And that was a school where they had young people that created a deepfake voice of a staff member who actually ended up getting discipline action. There was another one in Spain as well, where it was 14-year-olds who created a deepfake of their classmate and actually were convicted as well. So those are the two ones that pop into my head, and they were fairly recent. But very much a Google search will provide it very quickly, actually, because yeah, if you just type in Spanish deepfake Nudify app and then Pittsville deepfake voice clone, it will come up in the news.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions, Jessie, in the chat, or anyone asking to be unmuted?
No, just saying thank you so much. I think that's everything.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Please feel free to leave, and hopefully we'll see more of you next week at 4 o'clock for the second webinar in this trio series. Thank you.